The Telltale Head is wonderful for two reasons. Well, actually, three reasons. One, it's just very funny. Two, we get to see Bart feeling quite vulnerable, which up until this point we haven't had that much of. And three, we finally meet Springfield as a character in its own entity. We are, how many episodes in? 8 episodes into The Simpsons, and in this point we focused mostly on Bart and Homer, a little bit on Lisa. We're going back to Bart with this one, where he decides that he wants to try and look like a big man. And he decides that in order to do this, to impress some of the older, not very scholastic seniors at his school, that he's going to steal the head of Springfield, of Jebediah Springfield. And needless to say, this is not a good idea. I will say I was quite surprised by some of the characters' responses to this action, but ultimately, I kind of liked how very quickly it affected Bart, and how very quickly he realised that what he had done was maybe not the smartest thing. And I think that Bart feeling guilt for his actions is something that's a really great lesson, particularly for the younger generations watching this, but also for anybody watching this. I think peer pressure is a massive thing. That's a redundant sentence. Peer pressure is a massive thing. And that's what Bart felt. He had to do something to prove his worth. Unfortunately, he took it too far. And how will he get out of this situation? With difficulty, I think, is the only way to look at it. But what I also love about this episode is that the narrative structure is a little bit different to anything we've seen in the 7 previous episodes, because it starts near the end. It starts with Bart and Homer carrying the head of Springfield, and then coming against an angry mob. And Bart tells the angry mob, "You will think differently of this situation if you just allow me to tell you the story of what happened." And then, of course, we go back in time and Bart begins, well, the narrative is as usual. The story unfolds and we find out what exactly happened. The Simpsons doesn't do that often, but when it does, I think it could be quite fascinating, because we kind of know where it's going and where it's heading to. And sometimes it could feel maybe like it was being spoilery, like we kind of knew what happened. But actually, I think it works really well. I think they get the pacing right. To be honest, I think there are times, I've seen this episode multiple times, but it's very easy to forget that it started near the end. So it doesn't really spoil it. I think it's very funny and entertaining, but ultimately I think it's a really great character development episode for Bart. Yes, I wish we got more episodes about Lisa and Marge and maybe Maggie. The Simpsons very much is testosterone driven at this point. Most of the episodes and most of the subplots as well are focusing on Bart or Homer. But we know that that's not always the case. Maybe at the time, if I had watched this when it was released in 1990, I wasn't born then. This predates me by 2 years. But if I had watched it on broadcast, I might have been thinking, well, why are they just focusing on the male characters? Why are we not getting much of a look at the females of the house, considering the females outnumber the men in the house? I was going to say unless you include Santa's Little Helper, but then Snowball as well is female, I think. Maybe male or female? I don't know. If you know what sex Snowball is, let me know. Either way, completely irrelevant to this. The Telltale Head, I think, is very meaningful, very moving. It's great to see Springfield as a character itself. We get to know a lot of the individuals in Springfield who will crop up from time to time. But it's great to finally get to know about where the Simpsons live, what the sense of community is like, and of course to learn about the founding father. The Telltale Head may not be my favourite episode, but it's one that I definitely enjoy.